Today we continue our NHL offseason review series. We're still working on the teams in the Central Division. So today we're analyzing the Winnipeg Jets. What were their offseason objectives? What players came in? Who went out? And are they a better team or worse team heading into next season? We'll analyze that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're analyzing the Winnipeg Jets offseason to determine if they've met their objectives and see if they're a better team, worse team, or about the same going into next season. Obviously, teams leave the NHL season with an objective on how to get better during the offseason, and sometimes that can be tough to accomplish. So let's first take a look at what the objectives were for Winnipeg. Now, first up, they knew they had to find a way to improve this blue line. In the past couple of years, they've had a battered blue line after losing a ton of players to free agency or essentially like retirement with Dustin Byfuglien, and it's been tough. So they needed to find a way to get a stronger blue line while at the same time making sure they maintain the rest of the team, and some important contracts to do with some a few guys like some RFAs as well and UFAs, and try to make sure they could kind of reopen that window. A couple of years back, the Jets were kind of viewed upon as being a team that could threaten for a Stanley Cup. They had a deep playoff run, but they've had a hard time following it up and haven't been able to get back as far as they were a few years ago before they lost to the Vegas Golden Knights and in this conference final. So it's been tough for them to get back there. So that's what their goals are. Now, did they meet those goals? Of course, like every other team too, had to deal with the expansion draft this year. So we're going to look at that. So let's start off by looking at what trades they made and how the expansion draft affected them here heading into the early part of this offseason. Well, first up, the expansion draft, they kind of had no choice here. They were going to lose a good player either way. They had some interesting young forwards and D that could be picked by Seattle, and the Kraken ended up taking 25-year-old forward Mason Appleton, who's been with the organization for a fair bit of time, somebody they put a lot of time and effort into developing, and as of the last year and a half, has kind of slowly taken a more regular role and became a more important player for them, and now he's gone. So that certainly is a loss, especially, like I said, given that he's a younger player that they spent a lot of time really developing. Now, as far as the trade market goes, what did they do? Well, they were busy, and Cheveldayoff was busy early on, really focusing on that big objective, like I mentioned, about improving the blue line. I mean, he pulled off a big trade with Washington, bringing in a big rugged defender, Brendan Dillon, who they gave up 2 second-round picks for. I mean, Dillon comes in with a lot of size, a lot of experience, been around the league a while now, and can really play a good, solid physical game, good defender, and can really help back there for sure. They then later in the offseason made a trade for Nate Schmidt from Vancouver, who had came over from Vegas the year before. And even though he's still a pretty decent defenseman, Schmidt didn't really fit in the Vancouver systems and didn't really play the best. Didn't have a great year, kind of looked like he wanted a fresh start. And overall, they were able to do that and get him over to the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, they didn't have to really give up a whole lot in return, with the asking price ended up being a third-round pick. So overall, they got 2 real solid veteran NHL defensemen. Schmidt's a good puck mover, can produce a little bit of offense, and at the same time, you've got Dillon, who can give you a lot of defending, good size, and so they only had to give up second and third-round picks to make it happen. That was a great piece of work by Cheveldayoff. Certainly makes up for losing Appleton in expansion. I know it's you get one minus there, but then you get 2 pluses on the back end. So overall, at this point, things are not looking too bad. So that's all we saw in the way of trades. But when it came to free agency, we had some different stuff going on here. Now, what did the Jets do that way as far as retaining or bringing players in? Well, they ended up keeping Paul Stastny. It was a little bit surprising. I wasn't sure they could afford him, but he's been a pretty good, second to third line player since he's returned to Winnipeg. He's had 2 stints there. Seems to like it, and he get a 1-year deal at $3.8 million. So really, that's a pretty good contract. Obviously less money than he made before, but makes sense given his age and role changing here a little bit. So that was a great pickup, I think, for them to be able to retain him. I was really concerned about their center depth if he were to go on. But at the same time, the reason I was concerned is because we didn't see Pierre-Luc Dubois play that role consistently for them after the big trade with Laine last year. If we knew Dubois was going to be that solid number 2 center behind Scheifele, you get Adam Lowry in the number 3 spot. Obviously Stastny he's not so important, or you can put him in a different spot, maybe on the wing or something like that. But at the end of the day, they have more than enough capable centers here, which is certainly not a bad problem to have. But keeping Stastny around, the veteran guy, can produce, plays well with some of those guys too, so it was a good pickup. Obviously, they had to retain Andrew Kopp, who they get on a one-year deal as an RFA. That does give him the option to maybe be a UFA next year, which is somewhat concerning, but it's another opportunity for him to bet on himself and certainly show what he's capable of. But it could prove problematic for the Jets next offseason when it comes to Kopp and keeping him in the fold longer term. We'll have to figure that part out. Now, we do need to pause for a moment here as well before we jump into the remainder of the Jets offseason discussion to acknowledge one of our channel sponsors, SJSTer Smart Wallets. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by SJSTer. Forbes calls SJSTer the most successful smart wallet brand in the world. They certainly have high-quality products, high-grade leather. You can put all your cards in your wallet with RFID protection, and you can track it worldwide. That's the best part. You don't have to worry about losing your wallet and not being able to track it down. They have a great selection of products to choose from here, a variety of colors and styles, something to surely help for everyone. As you can see in the demonstration here for the product I have, this is a beautiful packaging, high quality. When you open it up, you get a high quality wallet with lots of slots for your cards. You have yourself a money clip if you want to carry cash on you here as well. And certainly, as you can see, the quality is outstanding. And here you can see the switch where you can help open up your cards. You just one little click and boom, everything fans out right in front of you. Easy to access. Your cards are protected. And here's the back where you have yet another slot. A terrific overall product, and I can't recommend these enough. SJSTer ships worldwide, and you can check out the link down below in the description as well as the pinned comment to buy yours today. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I greatly appreciate it, as well as all the other support you've shown me here on this channel, especially with all the super thanks you've given lately. I really appreciate it. Now let's get back in to the Jets content. Of course, one of their other top defensemen, on top of getting guys brought in, they also take care of Neil Piang, who's been a terrific addition after coming over into Jacob Trouba trade. I know when that trade first happened, some Jets fans might have been like, okay, what did we get for Trouba? We traded a 50-point defenseman, still pretty young, for this guy. Like, who is he? And you know what? It worked out rather well. I always said that you were selling high on Trouba. I had concerns that he was going to be able to duplicate those kind of offensive stats, and he gets an $8 million deal to Rangers, and he's basically now playing a second pair role because of the emergence of Adam Fox and given how he's played. And you know what? At this point, I think the Jets would rather have Piang than that form of Jacob Trouba. So they worked out quite nicely here. I think he's improved a lot since he's been there and has really come a long way, giving you good offensive stats and improving better a bit on the defensive side of the puck as well. He gets a 4-year contract at $5.8 million. To me, compared to what the other D's on the market have been getting this offseason, which have been crazy, I think this is a pretty fair contract and somebody who can play a solid top 4, if not top pair role for them moving forward. So like I said, Josh Morrissey is a good defenseman, but his stats really aren't the best. I think he's a better player than his stats indicate because he hasn't had a real solid, capable partner all the time. Like besides Piang, there's really not a lot of solid, experience back there. So adding Schmidt and Dillon will go a long way. So now you got Piang, you got Morrissey. That's a pretty good group of top 4 guys back there. You got Logan Stanley really emerged last year as well. You still got Dylan DeMello, who can play the right side as well. So Tucker Pullman is gone, and the decor is suddenly looking a lot different back there. So to me, it's a lot of good work that I'm really happy with, and think Cheveldayoff did a really good job reshaping the blue line, while maintaining what they had in the forward group. Goaltending was also a little bit of a different scenario as well. They are going to have to promote Eric Comrie by the looks of it to be the backup goaltender. That appears to be the plans right now. But you know what? He's been around a long time and probably deserves that shot. Connor Hellebuyck plays a lot, so it shouldn't be too big a deal for the Jets heading into the season here. Now, as far as who left the team, what are the big minuses here for players, heading out elsewhere? Well, for one, you got Laurent Brossoit, who was a backup goalie for the last few years. He's now gone. He get a better contract to vacate and go somewhere else. So he's, like I said, he's gone. Comrie's going to have to play the role of backup goalie. You did have a guy like Matthew Perreault, who's basically a cap crunch victim. He goes and signs a short-term deal at Montreal. I think it was fair to say we all kind of expected that. His time in Winnipeg was basically up. He was a big utility piece for Paul Maurice to move up and down the lineup. Could produce some secondary scoring, could play special teams a bit. And it was a good player there, but it was time to move on in that respect too. I mean, other defensemen that are going to be basically not there anymore because of the emergence of the trades they've made. You're looking at Derek Forbort, who had come over in a short-term deal. He leaves via free agency, goes to Boston. Tucker Puma, like I said, got that big contract in Vancouver. There was no way Cheveldayoff was going to pay him that kind of money. So if Jim Benning and the Vancouver Canucks want to pay that, then all the power to him. It's a good deal for Pullman. I'm not sure it's a good deal for the team, but we'll talk about that in the Vancouver video. Jordy Benny come over at the trade deadline, likely doesn't return. He's right now unsigned at this point. And Trevor Lewis, who was there on a short-term deal as well, as a veteran bottom six guy, leaves via free agency, goes to the Calgary Flames to join his former coach, Daryl Sutter, a player that Sutter's liked for a long time for his time in LA, so not a shock that happened. And of course, I didn't mention as well that the Jets did sign Riley Nash, who can basically come in on a short-term one-year deal at league minimum to kind of provide that same sort of bottom six, fourth line type of role and play kind of that role what Lewis has been for them lately. So to me, overall, like I said, they lost some pieces, but the pieces that come in for the most part are all the same or better. So I like the blue line better. The forward group's pretty similar, and the goaltending is okay too. Like obviously with Hellebuck being the stable piece there. So do the Jets have any unfinished business at this point in the offseason? Is there really any other moves we should expect from Winnipeg between now and training camp? And the answer to that is probably not. I think at this point, the only real thing I can see happening, and it may not happen before training camp, it couldn't even happen during camp or as training camp goes on here, because you're going to find a little bit more pressure for RFAs to get signed. You're going to see teams kind of maybe shedding some players that they don't want to lose through waivers and that kind of thing. So I think a guy like Sami Niku likely does need a fresh start and likely does want to get moved on here to go somewhere else to get more of an opportunity to play. So I wouldn't be shocked if the Jets do that, but they might have a situation where he goes to camp, maybe they try to get him into some preseason games to try to showcase him a little bit to see if they can find a deal and maybe just bring back, whatever they can get for a draft pick or a different prospect or something like that coming back. But Niku could get moved. Otherwise, I think the Jets team that you see that we just talked about is pretty well the Jets team that's going into the season. They will have a few spots that are kind of up for grabs and some younger players that can battle for spots. Guys like Vesalainen in forward group. You've got guys like Sandberg and Heinola on the back end who could, I don't know sure how much playing time they'll get this year, but they can certainly show what they're made of to try to get more of an opportunity and kind of go from there. But ultimately, I think the Jets have had a real solid offseason. I think it's fair to say that to me, I'm going to peg them as being a fairly improved team, and I think that they're better built for playoffs as well, which is the big factor here. I think with the division they're in, I think the Winnipeg Jets could have battled for a playoff spot regardless, but with the improvements they've made, especially on the back end, that is a way better blue line, which is going to be that much more important to have any chance to win playoff hockey and have a shot at making a deeper run. So to me, they're well positioned, and I'm going to say the Jets are certainly a better team going into the next NHL season here. So of course, as always, I want to know what your thoughts are on the Jets offseason. Do you like the moves they've made? Do you feel they're a better team, worse team? Did they meet their objectives? Let me know down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. There's plenty more videos coming in this series. We still have a lot of teams to cover. And of course, we also have daily uploads covering all the latest news, signings, rumors around the entire NHL. We analyze all 32 teams here at Top Shelf Hockey. So thank you very much for watching, and I will catch you next time.